Hey, this is Timmara, signing on with Dear Esther, yet again. More Dear Esther. Okay, so after going through a second time with director's commentary, learning some more things, learning their perspectives from the, developers, the composer, and yeah. And I decided I'll go one more time around on the island, try to find some things I missed before, probably some audio logs, and go one more time to get my final thoughts and just see what could possibly be different. So beating it once, yeah, I've gone through it twice, listening to the commentary, going through it the first time. I've got my thoughts, not all necessarily pieced together, but I figured one last go round. Oh wait, no, not resume, because I gotta start over. Yeah, I made a mistake. But go through one more time, re-listen to the diaries, see if they make any more sense, see if I skip some, because I think I did, I don't know. Yeah, because I know I missed some, but, you know, they also say sometimes you might see different ones, so I figured let's try it one more time around. And just see if I piece anything together new, or if I notice anything different. Supposedly there's even other audio logs that are maybe different.
Esther, the gulls do not land here anymore. I've noticed that this year they seem to shun the place. Maybe it's the depletion of the fishing stock driving them away. Perhaps it's me. When he first landed here, Donnelly wrote that the herds were sickly, and their shepherds the lowest of the miserable classes that populate these Hebridean islands. 300 years later, even they have departed.
Alright. So Donnelly, which is Esther, that's the other, again, this is my, this is part 4, so you should know that this is going to be spoiler filled. But okay, so mainly the thing going through again is just re-listening to the logs and figuring out who he's talking about. Because we should be playing as Paul, even though I've seen some people argue that it's not, but I'm going to go with it's Paul. And, Paul Jacobs, not sure, but, he's running to Esther, but, her last name is Donnelly, so that's something to keep in mind. So it's just going through with the context of, people's names and what things represent, and that this is all metaphorical. This could be just the creation of his addled mind.
The legend of the hermit, a holy man who sought solitude in its most pure form. Allegedly, he rode here from the mainland in a boat without a bottom, so all the creatures of the sea could rise at night to converse with him. How disappointed he must have been with their chatter. Perhaps now, when all that haunts the ocean is the rubbish dumped from the tankers, he'd find more peace. They say he threw his arms wide in a valley on the south side, and the cliff opened up to provide him shelter. They say he died of fever 116 years later. The shepherds left gifts for him at the mouth of the cave, but Donnelly records they never claimed to have seen him. I have visited the cave and I have left my gifts, but like them, I appear to be an unworthy subject of his solitude.
Okay. So, yeah, a shepherd, and, so if Donnelly wrote about it, which is Esther, is this a real island then? Okay, that's the thing. Is this sort of a mix of so this is a real island in, in this version of Scotland. Is this a real island in actual Scotland? I have no idea. I should have looked into that. So Donnelly knows this island and has written about it if she knows about the the shepherd and the legends that are here.
There was once talk of a wind farm out here, away from the rage and the intolerance of the masses. The sea, they said, is too rough for the turbines to stand. They clearly never came here to experience the becalming for themselves. Personally, I would have supported it. Turbines would be a fitting contemporary refuge for a hermit. The revolution and the permanence.
All right. And something the director's commentary talked about is that, they used really flowery language, making it very mysterious and, uncertain. So trying to piece down what they're actually saying and what these things actually mean, it's meant to be obscure. Doesn't necessarily help, but that's the case, so I'm trying to, piece out, the obscure parts and, now with the context of 2 go-arounds, to see if it's, gonna come together any clearer. So I'll see if I just find new dialogue or find new ways to piece this together. It's my last go-through on this thing. See if I pick up more audio logs, go the long way around, and, there's also these urns that you can uncover, but screw it. I was gonna look up where they are, but I don't need to use up that much of my time. So, okay. Just looking at something real quick. Okay. So just going around, loops like usual, we'll get there. So yeah, now just gotta wait for new journal entries, then I can try and interpret.
Donnelly's book had not been taken out from the library since 1974. I decided it would never be missed as I slipped it under my coat and avoided the librarian's gaze on the way out. If the subject matter is obscure, the writer's literary style is even more so. It is not the text of a stable or trustworthy reporter. Perhaps it is fitting that my only companion in these last days should be a stolen book written by a dying man.
What? But I thought Donnelly... Yeah, what? Unless that was supposed to be obscure?
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, or wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
Okay. So, okay. Well, for one thing, that's actually like a real piece of trivia, like, how people on islands would tell sailors, like, there's infection here, don't come closer, which is that's actually really cool. Okay, but so it seems like, well, obviously, I suppose he would know, like, this is a figment of his imagination.
We feel no particular need to turn back. There's nothing to be seen if we did. No tired old man parting the cliffs with his arms. No gifts or Bibles laid out on the sand for the taking. No tides turning or the shrieking gulls overhead. The bones of the hermit are no longer laid out for the taking. I have stolen them away to the guts of this island, where the passages all run to black, and where we can light each other's faces by their strange luminescence.
Okay. Some of these are new, some of these seem familiar. I maybe should have, edited up my first video to see which ones I heard before, whatever. Okay, so just based on Donnelly's, what he's saying, this is a real island documented and mythologized by Donnelly, or Dear Esther.
I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
Okay, either that's like third person's talk, god damn it, complicating everything. Okay, I've seen some people argue, it's like, oh, we're not, my assumption is, we're the ones writing the letters, obviously, so we must be, Esther's husband, or, this, and then based on the last trophy, titled Paul, we must be, who we're playing as, our narrator, is named Paul. That was my assumption. And some people who argue, it's like, well, I don't think so. I think, maybe we're just like, we're not the narrator. Maybe we're somebody else. We're unnamed. So now that's making me think, like, maybe Paul, seeking apology.
This hermit.
Hold on. Seeking apology because one way or another, I think we can, at least Paul is responsible for Esther's death. But again, are we playing as Paul and he's like just third person talking, or is that another person?
Where did he vanish to? Why?
I
Asked the farmers. Why? Asked Jakobsen. Why bother with your visions at all, if you're just to throw your arms up at the cliff and let it close in behind you and seal you into the belly of the island, a museum shut to all but the most devoted?
Right. You know, how I got it figured in my mind anyways is that we were playing as Paul. This island... Didn't notice that before. Okay. This island, basically, it's based on a real island, but Paul is using it kind of like as a skeleton for his mind. After Esther died, he either drunk himself into a coma, if that's even possible, but, like, fell into a coma, or is just, like, in some kind of, like, drunken stupor, maybe, or mental state where he's not, functioning, and, he's using this as an escape, an escape to try and, like, confront himself and rationalize, like, what happened and come to terms to what happened to Esther. And if it was his own fault, it would make sense that, he'd be looking for excuses and apology from himself. And, these are his own mad ravings. Maybe. That's how I see it, at least so far. And so, as you get farther into the game, he's just, like, confronting, reviewing stories to himself, and when he casts himself off the top of the tower at the end, but then goes off to fly, that's either him, like, accepting death, or that's him, returning to life. And I got one thing I really want to check at the end there, but we'll get there. So just carrying on. So I know I complain that, there's so many loose pieces in this, so it's not super satisfying to figure out, but I keep trying. Some new pieces come into play.
The vegetation here has fossilized from the roots up. To think they once grazed animals here, the remnants of occupation being evidence to that. It is all sick to death. The water is too polluted for the fish. The sky is too thin for the birds, and the soil is cut with the bones of hermits and shepherds. I've heard it said that human ashes make great fertilizer, that we could sow a forest from all that is left of your hips and ribcage, with enough left over to thicken the air and repopulate the bay.
Right, and I remember thinking that was weird, so, yeah, maybe, maybe his thought is we can use, Esther's remains, in order to, like, grow something new, or at least, sounds creepy when you put it that way. Can we go up here? No, I don't think so we can. Okay, never mind. Thought I saw something. Okay. So, yeah, it's just trying to figure out, whatever the hell is actually going on. I'm just kind of walking pretty straightforward. I don't know if I'm missing stuff. I know there are these hidden urns, but I only ever found the one, and I'm not bothered to look up, where another one could be. So let's just keep on going. Again, this is just me, with all the knowledge I know, going through a third time proper, kind of like what I did with Gone Home, and just like, with all I know now, let's go back again and see what gets recontextualized, or let's see if there's, like, something I missed, or, here's, with all the knowledge I know, here's me, like, reestablishing what I think the story actually is. So yeah, we're getting there. It should be a pretty quick playthrough, even if I take it the long way around.
I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome break services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
Okay, that all made sense except for that pull ashore part, but I think what he's trying to say is, like, I'm trying to figure out where you died. I'm going up and down the road where the accident happened, and I cannot find, like, where you were when you died, I think is what the implication is. And, you know, it's just sort of like, maybe Bunny says, like, evidence. It's just sort of like, you know, there has to be, like, some kind of memorial of, like, where your life ended for it to, like, mean something. Is that light just down in the water? Has it always been like that? Again, this is me trying to pull pieces together a little bit.
All night the boy has kept me lucid. I sat when I was at the very edge of
Oh, it's a
despair,
buoy, duh.
and I thought I would never unlock the secret of the island. I sat at the edge, and I watched the idiot boy blink through the night. He's mute, and he's retarded, and he has no thought in his metal head but to blink each wave and each minute aside until the morning comes and renders him blind as well as deaf-mute. In many ways, we have much in common.
Okay, that was pretty harsh to just talk about, like, a thing that floats in the ocean. So, you know, he's saying, you know, Bowie is like me. He's also deaf, dumb, and just like, and again, maybe that's just like his drunken stupor that he's in. I know in the director commentary they said, like, you know, oh, he's in a coma, but they never really confirmed that. They just said, like, that's a possibility of, like, what state he's in. But, you know, it implies, you know, he didn't go into a coma when, you know, when his wife died, because the implication seems to be, you know, he was up and around, again, trying to, like, come to terms to it on his own, and he just never could get over it. And, sorry. So that's what it seems like. Tempted to walk all the way over there just to see if there's another trigger.
I had kidney stones and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
Yeah, okay. So maybe it all happened, you know, after his surgery, you know, got his kidney stones removed. And neither did he eat nor drink,
There
right.
must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
All that. I'm probably going to miss in our dialogue box. At least with the director's commentary, you know, there were little symbols. I kind of wish there was, like, some kind of marking or something to interact with, a node to trigger, you know, the journals. So, yeah, I don't know. It seemed he was getting kidney stones removed, so Esther came to see him. Maybe that's when she revealed she was pregnant, maybe? Or it was part of it, and the car crash happened after, you know, after they were removed. And again, maybe Paul was drunk celebrating or something, and the crash was his fault. That's what I'm kind of, like, figuring out. To, like, you know, it would make sense. You know, it seems like it's more impactful, at least, if, you know, it's his fault. That's why he created this island, this isolation for himself.
Was this what Paul saw through his windscreen? Not Lot's wife looking over her shoulder, but a scar in the hillside, falling away to black forever.
Lot's wife. But why? Who's this Lot now? Or is maybe... Are we Lot? What the hell? Okay, I don't know. Yeah, I remember people reading it in the commentary. It's just sort of like, oh, yeah, we're playing as Paul. Oh, that's actually a really good idea. It's like, what do you mean? Who else would we be playing as? I don't know. We're Paul or Lot. I don't know. Paul Lot. Lot Jacobson. Or somebody, I think.
I've begun my ascent on the green slope of the western side. I've looked deep into the mountain from the shaft and understood that I must go up and then find the way under. I will stash the last vestiges of my civilization in the stone walls and work deeper from there. I'm drawn by the aerial and the cliff edge. There is some form of rebirth waiting for me there.
These logs are now starting to seem so self-aware. Like, you know, he's talking about the island more and kind of like things that are yet to come. And that's, you know, they talked about in the commentary that the cave is kind of a giant rebirth metaphor. Like I mentioned last time, lots of yonic imagery with like how the cave looks and everything. So, you know, I suppose with multiple ways through, he's talking
was
like...
constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either.
Okay, so with that, again, one of my conjectures were we're playing as like, you know, our last name is Jakobsen or something, but no, Jakobsen was like a completely different...
My heart is landfill. These false dawns waking into the still never light. I
Don't you sound picture
these
again?
small hours and wrap my blankets into a mess. I have always heard the waves break on these lost shores, always the gulls forgotten. I can lift this bottle to my ear, and all there ever is for me is this Hebridean music.
Okay. Like, okay, so I don't think we're Jakobsen, or like you were not associated. Otherwise the implication is like, you know, Donnelly found us on an island and brought us back with her. Okay, because I thought, you know, when he's talking about Jakobsen, I wasn't sure if maybe... Jesus. Bail notice, right. Who... I can't read anything more on that. Right, I forgot about that little detail. But why would there be a bail notice unless maybe... You know... Maybe it was either us or, you know, went to prison for the car crash, but eventually got released, maybe? I'm trying to figure this out. I don't want to play anymore. Yeah, now there's lots of new audio logs, and I don't know what else to do. You know, if the trophy's gonna ding that we listen to them all or something. Or if it's just like, I don't know. Just when you think you got it figured out, another piece gets added in.
Jakobsen's ribcage, they told Donnelly, was deformed. The result of some birth defect, or perhaps a traumatic injury as a child. Brittle and overblown it was, and desperately light. Perhaps it was this that finally did for him. Unable to contain the shattering of his heart. In half-light, his skeleton a discarded prop. A false and calcified seabird.
Okay. Again, when he says stuff like breaking of his heart, it makes me think it's still him. You know, his heart's broken because of the loss of his wife, so like his weak ribcage shattered.
They found Jakobsen in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. All around him, small flowers were reaching for the weak sun. The goats had adjusted happily to life without a shepherd and were grazing freely about the valley. Donnelly reports they hurled the body in fear and disgust down the shaft. But I cannot corroborate this story.
Okay. Again, for a second, I'm, you know, almost thinking it's still him. Just because, like, maybe after his wife died, he just isolated himself to an island and just died. But then again, he's talking about, like, this is stuff Donnelly wrote, stuff Esther wrote, so Jakobson must be just a separate character. Sorry. There's a lot of, I don't want to say conflicting advice, but it feels like that's the intention. Okay, so, yeah. We're getting somewhere. I know where dead ends are, and I'm just looking at stuff. Seeing what new stuff triggers. And, yeah, based on a real island, and in, Paul's mind, it's just been, like, covered in garbage and debris. It's just, like, as, ailed as him right now. The island itself is sick because of, like, what Paul's mind is going through.
Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
That's the other thing, is just like, how literal is this? Because we found that med kit. Again, is this like a past tense? Or maybe he went to this island. He physically went to this island. He physically went to this island after Esther died, in order to, go to a place she had a strong connection to. Maybe this is sort of like...
From here on in, his guidance, unreliable as it is gone from me. I understand now that it is between the two of us, and whatever correspondence can be drawn from the wet rocks.
And when he uses Donnelly and then still reverts to he, that also throws me off, because, yeah, it's Esther Donnelly, right? Okay, back to the caves, but there is no audio logs in here, so we'll try to make it quick. Just going through, I'm paying attention. I got nothing else to say. The caves are still looking really good, it's just, I've got nothing else to add. So, yeah, just Donnelly, but he keeps referring to he, unless Donnelly, because he did say, and there was no comma in this, it was Esther Donnelly, unless Esther is just a member of the Donnelly family. And so, maybe, like, there's somebody else named Donnelly. That'll explain why he stole a book. So, could he mayhaps been... No, yeah, maybe it's like the Donnelly family and, like, maybe whoever, he Donnelly is the one who originally wrote, like, stuff about the book. Or, originally wrote about the island, and maybe Esther's been here, maybe she hasn't, or maybe it was just like a fascination of hers, this island, because one of her family wrote about it. I suppose that's something that kind of makes sense and opens up some doors. But, yeah, just a lot of thoughts going through. There's some rocks. Sorry, I'm trying to piece the story the best I can. I just don't know what else to add. Okay, so yeah, maybe that's it. Like, there are two Donnellys, and he's making it a little obscure on which one he's talking about at what time. This depends on the pronoun. But usually when he refers to Donnelly, it's been going by he, so yeah. Not sure. Certainly seems strange. So Jakobsen's a separate character, unless by that same logic, we're, as Paul, the descendants of Jakobsen, a descendant of Jakobsen, that family, maybe? I don't know.
Traversing my own death throes. The infection in my leg is an oil rig that dredges black muck up from deep inside my bones.
Oh, there's the
I swallow
boat.
fistfuls of diazepam and paracetamol to stay conscious. The pain flows through me like an underground sea.
Yeah, I remember they talked about in the commentary, like, oh, when the boat goes by in the section, I go, what boat? And little paper boat. Hold on, I thought I saw something over here. I'm not sure to spend too much time in the caves. Is that an urn over there? There's one. I'm sure there's one urn per chapter, but, you know. Kind of looks like footprints. Maybe. I figured that was just the dead end. Can we ride the river to get up there a little bit faster? Okay. Oop. Another ultrasound picture, again. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm kind of leaning towards right now. And then again, yeah, maybe, yeah, he stole the book as a tour guide and then actually went to this island. Actually went to the island, and we're kind of seeing a dual perspective. One of, like, his addled mind just, like, clumsily walking through, and then another... Yeah, maybe? Yeah, maybe he's actually on this island, long abandoned, and his mind's just playing tricks on him. That's why we see certain things like ghosts, or maybe some like the, you know, pollution, maybe? And then, you know, maybe at the top, maybe when he jumps off the tower, maybe that's, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe when he jumps off the tower, maybe that's actually him, you know, dying. But, you know, metaphorically, we see him taking flight. There's just one thing I gotta see
I
again.
will hold the hand you offered to me. From the summit down to this well, into the dark waters where the small flowers creep for the sun. Headlights are reflected in your retinas, moonlit in the shadow of the crematorium chimney.
Right, yeah. So Esther died, she was cremated, along with the baby, probably. Was there a line where he said, like, he stole her ashes, too? Which that's an odd, like, detail. If it's his wife, or if maybe they were away from being a city? What? And, oh, there be... Okay. Yeah, we're just still going. We're getting there. Just keep on going. Almost there. This, like, should lead us back to the road again. Well, you know, first time it was a gurney, second time it was some cars. See if it's anything different this time. I doubt it. One or the other. Don't know if there's a third option. Car again. Sorry. Yeah, just car parts and everything. And again, it's just like the thing that's up in the air is, you know, is it our fault? You know, 2 cars got trashed in this accident, so, you know... We're getting there, we're getting there. Okay, normally we could, like, drag back down again when we surface. Not sure if maybe that was just like a, you know, instead of going straight up and moving around a bit, I ruined that, or maybe it just didn't happen this time? Because I thought the other times it implied, you know, you resurfaced because you're, you know, confronting, like, the accident when it happened, and when you resurface, you get drugged back down again by those, like, bad memories, but you can resurface again. One more section, see if anything else new pops up. Okay. Now, if anything new is going to pop up, it's going to be here.
I wish I could have known Donnelly in this place. We would have had so much to debate. Did he paint these stones or did I? Who left the pots in the hut by the jetty? Who formed the museum under the sea? Who fell silently to his death into the frozen waters? Who erected this godforsaken aerial in the first place? Did this whole island rise to the surface of my stomach, forcing the gulls to take flight?
Yeah. And like mad ramblings like that, I might not want to take too literally. Because again, that implies at least somewhat this isn't... Unless... Unless maybe his intention was to go to the island, but he shipwrecked on the way there and just drowned. That's one thought anyways. It's like maybe this was his intention, like, you know, find peace at the island and then didn't make it. And so he created the image in his head as he dies. I'm not sure. I'm thinking of going to places like where the, you know, the commentary tracks were to see if they trigger dialogue. Just a second, I want to try something. There's a thing up here, if it triggers a dialogue option, or... just paintbrush. So nothing's carved, everything's painted on. That doesn't necessarily, like, make anything clearer. Again, it could just be a pollution graffiti thing.
We shall begin to assemble our own version of the North Shore. We will scrawl in dead languages and electrical diagrams and hide them away for future theologians to muse and mumble over. We will send a letter to Esther Donnelly and demand her answer. We will mix the paint with ashes and tarmac and the glow from our infections. We will paint a moon over the Sanford Junction and blue lights falling like stars along the hard shoulder.
Right. Our own version of the North Shore, that implies, yeah, this island is being created by him. At least, maybe it's a real spot, but in this case, it is just a creation of our mind, at least to a degree. Yeah, I don't know. And Esther Donnelly, again, no comma. So Esther is definitely a member of the Donnelly family. And because we've heard of a Donnelly referred to as he, that must be different. Unless... No. That's been clarified. I was just thinking, I go like, what if there is no her, Esther? What if this is actually a story about, a reverse Gone Home and it's two guys? No, because, we've been certain about, like, a woman is involved. Maybe that picture helps confirm it. And, baby and everything. Yeah. Sorry, just, like, a thought occurred to me, and they go, like, no, we've already, like, that's easy, that's options easy to knock out. So, here are the big things. Hospital computer, Esther, car crash. Okay. Almost there.
There were
like
chemical stains on the tarmac, the leak of air conditioning, brake fluid and petrol. He kept sniffing at his fingers as he sat by the roadside, waiting as if he couldn't quite understand or recognize their smell. He said he'd been traveling back from a sales conference in Exeter. He'd stopped for farewell drinks earlier, but had kept a careful eye on his intake. You could hear the sirens above the idling traffic.
Okay. So that, yeah, implies a third party. Maybe that guy... Maybe we're playing as Lot. And that guy is Paul. At least that's my thought, because, the end of this chapter is called Paul, but, he's referred to as, like, Lot's wife. So that must be...
From here, I could see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
Okay. Ever meant to send you from the mainland, so... Yeah, maybe these are all, like, journals he wrote, like, on his boat ride over here, but he didn't make it. That's one other idea I'm starting to think of. And, yeah, we've had a couple of things refer to, now this Lot character. But, maybe he's talking to a different person. Eggs. Okay. Maybe Lot is a different person. Maybe we're playing as Lot, and Paul is the guy we got into the crash with. Because maybe, yeah, he was just... Yeah, maybe... Yeah. Because he said Lot's wife, and unless the other guy's Lot, and there was another... But then he implied... Whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Because it implies a business trip, so he'd be alone. So... Yeah, maybe that guy is Paul. We're Lot. And Esther, the two of them together going home after the kidney stones got removed. And then got into a car crash with Lot, or with Paul, as he was coming back from his conference. And, he survived. Well, then again...
When
yeah, I don't
Paul
know.
keeled over dead on the road to Damascus, they resuscitated him by hitting him in the chest with stones gathered by the roadside. He was lifeless for 21 minutes. certainly long enough for the oxygen levels in his brain to have decreased and caused hallucinations and delusions of transcendence. I'm running out of painkillers, and the moon has become almost unbearably bright.
Okay. Lots of 21s. 21 letters, or 21 boats, 21 minutes. So we're Paul. Because, yeah, that implies, Paul was dead on the side of the road too with Esther, but he was able to be resuscitated. But, being dead for that long, yeah, we're just seeing hallucinations and, unreliable narrator on top of everything else. So maybe we're Paul? I don't freaking know anymore. Are we Paul or Lot?
I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. You can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm confused because, are we Paul? Then again, also, if Paul, I'm assuming we're playing as Paul again, but if Paul suffered, severe brain damage from being temporarily dead, yeah, maybe even he doesn't have the pieces straight. Jesus Christ. This is so complicated. It's kind of fun getting all these pieces, but I have no idea what to believe. That's the thing, and that's kind of the problem. At least, conjecture can have, assumptions that can be based on solid proof. This is just assumptions. Again, at least from that implication, assumptions based on the ramblings of somebody who's brain damaged.
Realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection.
Infection again. Unless he thinks he's Donnelly, and, Donnelly's the one who actually, injured his leg. God. Sorry. All these... even I'm starting to become my own rambling madness. I'm just trying to figure out what he's trying to say. But, is he saying, maybe Donnelly, when he died, maybe he has,
like a hangnail, like a drowning man clung onto the wheel, drunk and spiraled, washed onto the lost shore under a moon as fractured as a shattered wing. We cleave, we are flight and suspended, these wretched painkillers, this form inconstant. I will take flight. I will take flight.
Okay, he's just getting more and more agitated. Unless, he crashed, maybe lost his letters. 2 rings? Okay. Crashed, lost his letters, did somehow, get washed up on the shore. We did start at a dock. So maybe he managed to, stumble onto the island between, the painkillers, the brain damage. His mind is just all over the place. And, the only thing he can think of is taking flight. Again, it's hard to tell is if we are actually, it's if we're actually on the island or if it's all just a figment of his imagination. Speaking of taking flights. Sorry, I just saw the, trails, probably from planes or something. Sorry, I'm trying to piece together and be as coherent as possible, but I'm very confused. And I don't want to do another playthrough. I'm paying attention.
I have dredged these waters for the bones of the hermit, for the traces of Donnelly, for any sign of Jakobson's flock. for the empty bottle that would incriminate him. I have scoured this stretch of motorway 21 times, attempting to recreate his trajectory. The point when his heart stopped dead and all he saw was the moon over the Sanford Junction. He was not drunk, Esther. He was not drunk at all, and it was not his fault. It was the converging lines that doomed him. This is not a recorded natural condition. The gulls do not fly so low over the motorway and cause him to swerve. The paint scored away from his car in lines like an infection, making directly for the heart.
Okay. I was hoping to stay there. So yeah, what? He was hoping to maybe find answers at the island, but there was like just nothing left, and he's trying to rationalize, like, maybe nobody was drunk, maybe it was just like an accident caused by like a bird and he like panic swerved. I've done that, not into anybody, just like I had like an animal cross me on a road and I panicked, and my first instinct driving was just to dodge it, and no damage. I went into a pretty deep ditch and somehow I had no issues. I was pretty secure. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe, maybe that's what he's saying, is that maybe it was not negligence, maybe it was just an accident. Not necessarily his fault, it just happened.
Ariel. In my passing, I will send news to each and every star.
Right, he said that before too.
Dear Esther, I have burned the cliffs of Damascus. I have drunk deep of it. My heart is my leg, and a black line etched on the paper all along this boat without a bottom. You are all the world like a nest to me. Eggs unbroken form like fossils, come together, send small black flowers to the air. From this infection, hope. From this island, flight. From this grief, love.
Okay. Okay, so in that last section, I almost dropped my controller. Okay, so in that last moment, you know, you can hear, like, halfway through that flight, just, like, the music swelling, but you can just hear that faint, like, you know, he's saying Esther a couple of times. And at the end, and I missed this in the, you know, missed it in the original playthrough because I was so confused, but very faintly, as the music fades, you can hear that flat line, which is something that was brought up in the commentary, and Paul, I'm assuming, saying come back. So that must have been, at least my assumption is, you know, that's basically him pleading Esther to come back as she flatlines in the hospital, maybe. You know, didn't die right away, but died in the hospital, you know, and he was with her when she died, is my another assumption, admittedly. These are all guesses. Ouch. And I didn't get a trophy for, like, you know, finding all the dialogue, so I must have missed something. It's fine. Okay. So that was Dear Esther. How was it? It's okay. It's just I keep getting... Here's the problem. And I do respect, you know, what they were going for. You know, what Chinese Room was going for when they were trying to do this. They were trying to keep it vague. They were trying to keep it, you know, uncertain. They tried to keep it open, so open-ended that, you know, anyone can show up to this and create their own, you know, interpretation of the story. And, you know, whether you play it once, you can start to come to conclusions like I did, but then going it through a second, learning some more ideas, a third, you know, but the biggest thing is I just can't finalize on a idea. Because, and I feel like this is an apt comparison, it's kind of like you have a puzzle, and it fits together all right, but some of the nubs on the pieces that connect them together have been, like, shaved off a bit. So, you know, the puzzle comes together, but it's just all these holes, so the clear picture is just kind of like, you know, not there. And... yeah. I'm just not sure, because... just, I'm thinking here. It's... yeah, I'm not sure, because... yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just like... yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just like, I'm so confused by this game. And it's just like, maybe we're not Paul. Maybe the narrator... yeah, well, now I'm just confused, like, who's this lot? You know, they brought another name into this, overcomplicating things. And that's just, like, what's confusing me, but maybe we're not Paul. Maybe, you know, maybe we are just, like, a narrator. Paul was in the other car, and... yeah, it's just become so... okay, just to simplify things, let's rethink this. We are not Paul. Paul is the guy who was in the other car. That was the guy coming from this convention, or, you know, this... trip, and he's the one, you know, I've been calling him Paul basically since the ending of the first game, because that was just like a name to go off of. But okay, we are the narrator. Let's just call him by that. We'll call him Nigel, because that's the name of the voice actor. You know, we are Nigel. So we, you know, meet a woman, Esther, from the Donnelly family, who have researched this island, at the very least. You know, maybe they get together, fall in love, marry, they must have married. I was thinking, like, maybe they weren't even, like, together, really, but we saw wedding rings, bands, so I think that implies that much. You know, together, Esther got pregnant, either that was known before or after, the kidney stone, removal, the surgery. And so Nigel, went to the hospital, however you want to say that, and got them removed. Everything was fine. Him and Esther driving back home after in the middle of the night after a long day, they come across Paul, who's back on his way from a, business trip, convention, whatever the hell. And, is he drunk, or did he just, swerve because, an animal crossed his path at random, and just, he panicked, and then crash. So, yeah. Paul, well, I'm thinking here. Okay, so Paul either maybe called 911 somehow, found a payphone at the time, I don't freaking know, but, 911 eventually showed up as he's, 911 showed up, and he's just kind of, taken aback, they say it's, covered in oil and, oil, coolant, and it's just, doesn't know what it is, so he's caught off guard. And Nigel and Esther in the car, both dead, maybe, or at least in critical condition. Yeah, let's just say Nigel and Esther, critical condition. They get taken to the hospital. Nigel manages to wake up, but severe brain damage. And then, is with Esther when she dies in the hospital, which is why we hear the flatline right at the end, and, Nigel basically begging Esther to come back. And, when you die in other ways throughout the game, and he says that same line, come back. Either that's, him, either, referencing back to Esther, or telling himself, come back. This is not where you die. This is not where we're gonna end things. So, Esther dies in the hospital, and, Nigel doesn't know what to do with himself. So, his only thing he can think of is go to the island that the Donnelly family has such a history with. And he finds it maybe a poetic way to end his own life, maybe. He steals a book, just trying to get some information, something to read on his way over there, I guess. Written by Donnelly, maybe Esther's father, I don't know. But anyways, starts heading off to the island, and, because his mind is all shattered, he starts writing, to him it's like a little trip that he's going to tell his wife all about, so he starts writing the letters to Esther. And again, the number 21 keeps popping up. Happened... Yeah, I suppose it does make sense. Well, maybe. The 21, it's the road, it's how long he was dead, it's how many letters he wrote, 21. It's gotta be another significance to that. Anyways, so, where was I? So, he's on his way to the island, has a boat, but it sinks. He loses his letters, and he nearly drowns, which could possibly have caused more damage. Or maybe, or maybe he got to the island and somebody revived him, and that's how we got, the brain damage, or... Anyways, I'm trying to remember where everything came from. But let's just say, for the hypothetical, is that, drowned, but somehow, washed ashore at the beginning of the lighthouse, even though it's kind of on a concrete platform. But washed up, and where we begin is him waking up. His mind is just so scattered, so disjointed, that he can't rationalize, what am I even doing here? Why am I here? I'm still writing my letters to Esther, there's people here, and, hearing, or, there's nobody here, and, the ghosts of, Jacobson and Donnelly, maybe, just all over this place, because there's, nobody here. And so we're kind of seeing a dual perspective of, this is just an abandoned island, or maybe he's, on an unpopulated side of it, I don't know, but an abandoned island, nobody here, and so he just begins to walk. So, maybe the island really is, like, this polluted where... That's the thing, there's also, like, wire fences, so maybe it was, like, active until recently? I don't know. That's the other thing. Or again, maybe it's just, like, a figment of his imagination as he drowns, and just, like, he's putting, like, modern pieces of, fencing and like other things just like add character to it because it's what he knows about this mysterious island. Or let's just say he gets there and his goal is just to cast himself off of the rocks, or cast himself off of the highest point of it, which he does. And based on how that camera goes, I had the thought maybe like the camera shows, like, it's him falling and then, like, flying as a gull. Or what if it's, like, kind of twisted as, like, the gull flies by as he falls and, like, brains across the surface of the beach. And the, again, shouldn't take things too literal. I don't think he he didn't actually turn into a bird. But I think, either that was supposed to be symbolic of him, like, passing away from his, suicide attempt, or, again, maybe it was just a gull that happened to fly by at the exact same moment he fell down, and, like, basically, like, the gull kind of, like, stole the camera away from him, if you will. It's just kind of a dumb thought, but it's something. But, yeah, so the implication... At least, and again, the implication is, this Nigel, the narrator, died at some point during all this. But then again, it's also like, I don't know. I cannot be certain about any of these factors, any of these assumptions. And again, there is something to, I respect, I respect Chinese Room in its way to, like, create such an open-ended story where, again, you can play this any number of times and still be, like, theorizing on, like, what the story means. But on the other hand, again, there's just so many holes in this picture that it's just not satisfying to think about. I'm just getting, like, more agitated not having an answer. At least, that's just me, though. Again, I've seen plenty of people talk about it and go like, it's like, that's what's so great about this, is that, it does make you think. It does have a it does not have a satisfying answer, so you're always thinking about it, trying to piece things together differently. But again, at least for me, it literally, like, makes my head hurt trying to, like, come up with an answer and, physically unable to. It just, like, it actually makes me upset that I cannot, like, get a solid answer. And so, Dear Esther will always be in your mind. You'll always be thinking about Dear Esther, according to the directors, but it just... I'm gonna play a better game and then forget about this. So, I think that's kind of it, If I had played Gone Home after this, I think I just would have, I just... it just, like, is so... And again, that's just how I feel, Maybe people do like that abstractness and the obscurity of just, like, not being able to have an answer. Me, I like to know things. And just, like, it feels so unsatisfying that such a, such a simple idea, such a simple story from such a simple game, to think, like, the answer is this complicated. Kind of an unfair example, but, like, say, Dark Souls, where, all the lore in that is basically, like, based off conjecture, too. You don't know how these characters are related, you don't know how, like, if this mythos is correct, but at least in Dark Souls, you can make pretty good guesses. There's nothing to tell you you're right, but, there's at least enough threads and, enough... it's also like a fantasy game in a fantasy world, so, you can get, like, over the top with it, and it'll still, like, make sense. It's like mythology. But here it's grounded enough in reality where, like, the obscure things just like drive me insane. And again, that's just me. This is complete. I recognize these are all my hang-ups. But this is just like, an experience I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling. And I really tried. And it's just like, first playthrough, it's like, okay, first playthrough, it's just like, okay, this is very slow and very obscure. Okay, maybe with some time I can piece this together. And then after listening to the commentary, which was really interesting, and again, I appreciate, like, the hard work I'm sure it took, like, to do this. And, like, Dear Esther's Weird History as, like, a Half-Life mod. And, how it's been, like, redone multiple times in order to, like, truly get, like, the vision across. But even in the director's commentary, they admit they don't have an answer. The creators of the game don't know what the story is. And, and again, there's the fault in your stars thing, where it doesn't matter, even if they don't know what was going on, it doesn't matter what the creator thinks, it's about what someone interprets from it and what they take away from it. But what I take away from it is that it's just an incomplete, unsatisfying story. And that's just me. So the third playthrough, I thought, like, let's clear some things up and let's see if I can get a more solid, interpretation. And it just feels flimsier and flimsier. I feel like some things did get clarified, but on the other hand, it just still feels like there's too many, like, flimsy pieces. And I don't know, what else to go off of. So, okay. I think I'm done. I think, I've said my piece, I've said my interpretation, that's like as solid an interpretation as I'm going to get. But as far as Dear Esther goes, this is just like left too many doors open where it's just so unfulfilling in the end. So I don't know. That's just me. And again, I've seen some people be like very like into this and they totally love it. And, again, some pretentious articles about like, oh, it's not a game, that's why it's brilliant. Or, some people saying like this like slow methodical adventure is introspective and it, makes you feel, and, that confusion kind of adds to it. Again, works for some people, not for me personally. But I can understand the appeal, it just drives me insane. So, yeah, Dear Esther, well, if you've seen me go through it several times, you probably know how you feel by now, and I hope I'm not coloring it. But, I've said my piece. As far as Dear Esther goes, yeah, Dear Esther, definitely a landmark in the genre of walking sims. But, there are better places to visit. That's how I feel anyways. Alright, with that all being said, thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, like and subscribe and all that. This is Timmara, signing off, and thank you once again for watching me play Dear Esther, Landmark Edition.